Clint Eastwood, born May 31, 1930, San Francisco, California, U.S., is an American motion picture actor who emerged as one of the most popular Hollywood stars in the 1960s and went on to become a prolific and respected director-producer. During the Great Depression, Eastwood moved with his family a number of times before they finally settled in Piedmont, California, in 1940. He was drafted during the Korean War and stationed in California. Following his discharge from the Army in 1953, Eastwood moved to Hollywood. A screen test with Universal in 1954 netted him a 40-week contract, but, after one renewal and a series of bit parts in such movies as Tarantula 1955 and Revenge of the Creature 1955, his option was dropped. He appeared in several TV series before he got his big break in 1959 by being cast as Rowdy Yates in the popular TV western Rawhide 195965. Eastwood achieved international stardom during the same period when he played the man with no name, a laconic, fearless gunfighter whose stoicism masks his brutality in three Italian westerns popularly known as spaghetti westerns directed by Sergio Leone. Per un pugno di dollari 1964. A Fistful of Dollars, per qualche dollari in Pio 1965, for a few dollars more, and Il Buono, Il Bruto, Il Cattivo 1966, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. In 1967 the three films played in the United States and were immediate commercial successes, establishing Eastwood as a box office star. For Eastwood's first American Western, Hang 'Em High 1968, Ted Post's expert imitation of the Leone formula, enlivened by a superior group of character actors, he formed his own production company, Malpaso. He also worked with Don Siegel on the popular police story Coogan's Bluff 1968. It was Siegel who taught him most of what he needed to know about directing, and that Eastwood often acknowledged. He also worked with Siegel on the western Two Mules for Sister Sarah 1970, the psychological Civil War drama The Beguiled 1971, and the prison break film Escape from Alcatraz 1979. Their best-known collaboration was Dirty Harry 1971, in which Eastwood first portrayed the ruthlessly effective neo-noir police inspector Harry Callahan. The film proved to be one of Eastwood's most successful, spawning for sequels and establishing the no-nonsense character Dirty Harry, known for such catchphrases as "Go ahead, make my day," as a cinema icon. Eastwood turned to directing in such films as the thriller Play Misty for Me 1971, the westerns High Plains Drifter 1972 and The Outlaw Josie Wales 1976, and the espionage thriller The Agar Sanction 1975, all films in which he also played leading roles. Eastwood took over the western The Outlaw Josie Wales 1976 from Philip Kaufman, who co-wrote the story of a Missouri farmer driven to violence after his family has been slaughtered by renegade Union soldiers. Stylishly photographed by Bruce Surtees, with a fine performance by Chief Dan George as a Cherokee elder, this work humanized Eastwood's mythic Avenger archetype for the first time. Eastwood went on to make The Gauntlet 1977, a kinetic but formulaic action film in which he played a police detective trying to transport a witness, Sandra Locke, to an Arizona courthouse where she can testify. The gentle good humor pervading Bronco Billy 1980 was far removed from the mayhem of his westerns and cop movies. Eastwood was deft as the proprietor of a two-bit Wild West show who gives shelter to, then falls in love with, a runaway heiress Locke. Firefox 1982 was a high-tech Cold War story that had Eastwood as a pilot stealing a supersonic jet from the Soviets. The whimsical and sentimental Honky Tonk Man 1982, set during the Great Depression, featured Eastwood as a country singer dying of tuberculosis whose dream is to make it to the Grand Ole Opry before he passes on. Having wandered rather far afield from his star action persona, Eastwood directed the fourth Dirty Harry film, Sudden Impact 1983, with Locke portraying a rape victim on a vengeful murder spree. He then returned to his screen roots with the neo-mythic Pale Rider 1985, a quasi-religious western. It showcased Eastwood's iconic presence and Surtees's gorgeous photography and was one of the few hit westerns of the 1980s. Heartbreak Ridge 1986 was an enjoyable drama about an old-school Marine Sergeant Eastwood on the verge of retirement whose tough approach whips a group of raw recruits into shape for the invasion of Grenada. White Hunter. Blackheart 1990 was Eastwood's most audacious project of this period of his career. an adaptation of Peter Viertel's Roman A. Clef about his on-location collaboration with director John Huston on The African Queen 1951, bravely tackling the part of Huston. Eastwood embodied the great director's rugged physical presence. A lifelong devotee of jazz and an accomplished pianist, Eastwood also directed the well-regarded Bird 1988, a film biography of saxophonist Charlie Parker Forrest Whitaker, and produced the documentary Thelonious Monk, Straight, No Chaser 1988. Off-screen, Eastwood made national headlines in 1986 when he was elected mayor of Carmel, California. He served for 2 years. Because Eastwood's style of acting was minimally expressive, his films initially drew little praise from critics. Yet his strong, resonant screen presence earned him success at the box office. His standard role was that of a tough loner whose violent behavior conformed to his own understated moral principles. However, Eastwood's willingness to demythologize such stock characters as Western heroes and cops eventually brought him critical acclaim, as did his lean, crisp directorial style. He became known as a director equally adept at presenting deep character studies and fluid action sequences. After the unsuccessful police drama The Rookie 1990, his revisionist Western Unforgiven 1992 featured a towering performance by Eastwood as an erstwhile regulator who lays down his plowshare to execute a thug who has disfigured a prostitute. Both the picture and Eastwood for Best Director won Academy Awards. The film was critically lauded for Eastwood's unsentimental look at frontier violence. In the quiet drama A Perfect World 1993, an escaped convict Kevin Costner takes a boy TJ Lowther hostage, and an unlikely bond forms between them. Eastwood played a Texas Ranger tracking them down. He made a rare appearance in another director's film when he played a U.S. Secret Service agent trying to thwart a presidential assassination in Wolfgang Petersen's popular action thriller In the Line of Fire 1993. The Bridges of Madison County 1995 was Eastwood's effective mounting of the enormously popular novel by Robert James Waller. Eastwood was excellent as a photographer traveling through Iowa for a magazine piece on its historic covered bridges, and Meryl Streep played a farmer's wife who, against her better judgment, enters into an affair with him. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil 1997 was also based on a book that became a publishing phenomenon. The nonfiction bestseller by John Barrett about a murder that rocks the community of Savannah, Georgia, which is populated almost entirely by eccentrics. In the thriller Absolute Power 1997, Eastwood played a thief who, in the midst of a robbery, witnesses the Secret Service murder a woman whom the President of the United States Gene Hackman has just attacked sexually. In True Crime 1999, Eastwood starred as a veteran reporter whose investigative skills revive when he learns that a prisoner Isaiah Washington scheduled for execution that night is probably innocent. Space Cowboys 2000 had Eastwood as the head of a team of elderly test pilots Tommy Lee Jones, James Garner, and Donald Sutherland who have been summoned out of retirement to rescue the National Aeronautics and Space Administration NASA when an obsolete Russian satellite requires disarming. Bloodwork 2002 was a serviceable thriller about a retired Federal Bureau of Investigation FBI profiler who is convinced that only he can locate a murderer. Mystic River 2003 set a new standard for Eastwood as a director. Sean Penn, Kevin Bacon, and Tim Robbins starred as childhood pals who have grown up to live widely disparate lives while still bound to the working-class neighborhood they were born into. Eastwood took another Best Director Oscar nomination, and the film was also a Best Picture nominee. $1 Million Baby 2004 was another success for Eastwood. A crusty fight trainer, Eastwood is haunted by his failed relationship with his daughter and a female aspiring boxer Hilary Swank who wants to train under him. But tragedy strikes in the midst of her big match. And the rest of the movie is concerned with what makes life worth living. Probably the biggest dark horse success of Eastwood's career, $1 Million Baby won Oscars for Best Picture, Best Actress Swank, and Best Supporting Actor Morgan Freeman. It also brought Eastwood his second Oscar for Best Director. The film broke the $100 million mark at the American box office. Eastwood next directed the World War II films Flags of Our Fathers 2006 and Letters from Iwo Jima 2006, both of which focus on the Battle of Iwo Jima. The latter, told from the Japanese perspective, was nominated for several Oscars, including Best Director and Best Film. Changeling 2008 was a period piece set in Los Angeles in 1928. It was based on a grim true story of a missing boy whose mother, Christine Collins' Angelina Jolie, is horrified when, several months later, the police return him to her in the person of an entirely different child. Eastwood won a special award for Changeling at that year's Cannes Film Festival. In Gran Torino 2008, Eastwood played Walt Kowalski, an irascible retired auto worker living in a blue-collar suburb of Detroit, who is forced to shake off a lifetime of suspicion toward minorities so as to don the role of protector to a family of Hmong immigrants. The film was a major box office hit, shot in Cape Town, South Africa. Invictus 2009 took as its subject press Nelson Mandela Freeman and his plan to unite his racially divided country by using the 1995 Rugby World Cup, in which South Africa's almost all-white Springboks team, typically reviled by the majority black populace, faced heavily favored New Zealand in the finals. Their inspirational victory was presented in thrilling fashion by Eastwood, but the film's real strength was its painstaking attention to the political and cultural issues negotiated by the players and Mandela. Hereafter 2010 was an oddity in the Eastwood canon, a measured, quiet drama about three characters whose widely divergent life experiences have left them convinced of the reality of an afterlife. The anguish experienced by each is etched expertly by Eastwood, but the story is told at a languid pace. J. Edgar 2011 was a weighty biopic of J. Edgar Hoover. Leonardo DiCaprio, the longtime head of the FBI. Armie Hammer had the film's other key role, Clyde Tolson, Hoover's right-hand man and the love of Hoover's life. Thus, J. Edgar was as much a romance as an account of a power-hungry bureaucrat who became one of the most feared and loathed figures in American life. Eastwood then helmed a film adaptation, 2014, of the Tony Award-winning 2006 musical Jersey Boys, about the rise of the American rock and roll group the Four Seasons. Eastwood's adaptation of a Navy SEAL sniper's memoir, American Sniper 2014, was lauded for the finesse with which it depicted both the violence of the Iraq War and the difficulty of a soldier's adjustment to civilian existence. The film received an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. Eastwood continued to draw inspiration from true-life events with Sully, about airline pilot Chesley "Sully" Sullenberger, played by Tom Hanks, who landed a malfunctioning commercial jet on the Hudson River. The docudrama recounts both the emergency landing and the ensuing investigation into Sullenberger's handling of the event. In his next film, The 1517 to Paris 2018, Eastwood chronicled the 2015 terrorist attack on an Amsterdam to Paris train, and he cast the three Americans who thwarted the strike to play themselves. He also directed and starred in The Mule 2018, a drama based on the New York Times article about a horticulturist and World War II veteran who became a courier for a drug cartel. Eastwood again looked to true events for his next directorial effort, Richard Jewell 2019, a biopic that centers on the Atlanta Olympic Games bombing of 1996 and the security guard who was wrongly suspected of the attack. In 2021, Eastwood directed and starred in Cry Macho, a story of redemption centering on a former rodeo star who agrees to drive a man's young son home from Mexico. Besides his Academy Awards, Eastwood received the Irving G. Thalberg Award for Lifetime Achievement in 1995 and the American Film Institute's Life Achievement Award in 1996. In 2007, he was made a Chevalier of the French Legion of Honor. He was elevated to commander 2 years later.